Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about case names. And we're going to talk about basically these kind of fundamental rules for properly citing the case names according to the Blue Book. And don't forget, I gave you a link to the Indigo book, but um, correct case names when it comes to formatting. Again, this is essential. It's going to give the clarity, it's going to give consistency, and it's professional when it comes to court writing or court filings, rather, scholarly work, legal documents, all of that stuff. So let's kind of dig in. We're going to talk about how to format like the cases and when to use italics and, when to abbreviate or how to abbreviate rather, and then some common mistakes. But this will be just a very quick kind of overview. We're going to talk first about the full versus the short case citations. A full case citation appears the first time a case is mentioned in a document, and it's going to include the case name, the volume number, the reporter abbreviation, the first page of the case, a pen site if it's applicable, and then the year and the court and the year of the decision. Sorry. So, for example, a proper citation is going to look like this. Now, let's break this down a little bit more. So, we have Brown versus Board of Education, 347 U.S. 483, 490, 1954. Okay. So, starting first, we have the Brown versus the Board of Education. Okay. This part right here is the case name. It does get italicized, and it is written in normal, like capital and lowercase letter mixture. Then we have the volume number, and this is the volume number of the reporter. Then we have the U.S. part, and this is the abbreviation for the United States reports, and that's the reporter that this particular case is found in. Then you have the 483, and that's the first page of the case. If you see where there's a comma afterwards and then another number, that is going to be your pen site, okay? And that's a specific page that is being cited. So in this case, we are specifically citing page 490, okay? And then we have the year that goes into the parentheses. So now let's talk about the short case citations, because once a case has been cited in full, you can actually use these short citations later. And the short form is typically going to include a shortened version of the case name, the reporter volume and abbreviation, and then the page number if necessary. So that's what this looks like. So Brown versus Board of Education turns into just the first part of the Brown, it's the plaintiff, the volume number of the reporter, and then the specific page that we are talking about. So, but short citations, please remember, should only be used if the case was cited in full earlier in the same, discussion, the document, whatever. And that's so that the reader will easily recognize whatever it is that you are referencing at the time. Now let's talk about italics versus caps. So when do you use italics? This is going to be for case names when it's used in the main text of a document. So this would be like being used in a sentence. So if you are talking about a case and you are adding the information, then it would look like this. So like in Miranda versus Arizona, the court established the requirements for police to inform individuals of their rights. So in this case, you have the case name that is going to be italicized. So when you're using caps or all capital letters, this is when you are citing cases in footnotes or law reviews or, some sort of scholarly legal writing or something like that. In this case, you're going to use all capital letters instead of italics. So it would look something like this. And this was like if it was a footnote down at the bottom. So it would have no italics. And again, it would be in all capital letters. One thing that I can say that is a frequent error, and that is mixing the italics and the caps together. So if the case is going to appear in text, you use italics. If it appears in footnotes or any other place like that, it's going to be in caps. Now let's talk quickly about abbreviations. So the Blue Book gives some specific rules for abbreviating case names. And again, those are to ensure that there is some consistency in legal writing. So when it comes to general rules about abbreviations, you have some common words that get abbreviated. For example, you have the United States. It just becomes U.S. U.S. Then you have the company becomes co, period. Corporation becomes corp with a period. Okay. Um, when you have words of 8 or more letters, okay, those can be abbreviated if, it allows you to save space. So, like association becomes ASS apostrophe N. And then you have construction, which just becomes CONSTR, period. Now, I need to let you know that you absolutely do not abbreviate the first word in a party name unless it is something that has been like widely recognized. For example, United States versus Smith would not be U.S. versus Smith in a full citation, but the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People versus Alabama would absolutely be the NAACP versus Alabama. Or the International Business Machines Corporation versus Johnson would absolutely be the IBM Corp versus Johnson. So, again, those are widely recognized company names, and people would know what it is that you're talking about when you're talking about IBM and the NAACP. But again, the goal here is to keep your citations both clear and professional. Now, last but not least, let's talk about some special rules when it comes to case names, okay? And that's because not all words in a case name need to be included in a citation. The Blue Book, its rule is 10.2.1c, and it says that certain names can be omitted. For example, the is always omitted if it's at the beginning of a party name. You also have first names, incorporated, LLC. Those kinds of things are also typically omitted unless it is necessary to distinguish parties. For example, the state of Georgia versus Thompson. We're just going to call it state versus Thompson because that is what is correct. Then we have John Smith, Mary Johnson, and Robert Greene versus Susan Brown and David White. And in this case, it's just going to be Smith versus Brown, okay? A common mistake is going to be, again, keeping any kind of unnecessary words in a case name. They tend to make the citations unnecessarily long and inconsistent as well. But anyhow, so I've covered kind of the basics, but I gave you a very simple assignment to look at, I think it's 10. You're just going to format just the case names, just the, blank versus blank. And that's it. Look in the Indigo book if you need it to make sure that you have it right. And let me know if you have any questions. Bye.